Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Easily Distracted podcast. We have a very special guest here today. He's travelled a long way to speak with us.
So to start with, here's just a quick question so we can get on with it. Posh Pete, where did this name originate from?
Hate that
Do
name.
you hate it? Really? Okay.
Really?
Honestly. Right, so I've got a good friend of mine down in Wales, in Port Talbot. Hi, Mark. How you doing? Shorty. His nickname's Shorty, right? He's short, but he's about 6 feet wide. In fact, your next guess. What's your next guess, Kevin?
Chet Sandu.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, my mate used to be in the steroids. He was a bodybuilder, Welsh champion, kickboxer, ab boxer, and he used to call me his posh little English buddy.
Okay.
Because, like, compared to him, I was
pretty
not
patronising at all.
But in a friendly way.
Yeah, of course.
So anyway, I told a reporter stupidly from the Mirror or the Sun or someone. They said, "Oh, have you got any nicknames?" And I said, "Oh, my mate in Wales calls me Posh." And then she went, "Oh, Posh Pete." And I was like, "What the fuck have I just done?"
Yeah. And they'll run with that.
And that was it. It was like, bang, there we go.
But do you think that's helped? Like, that has probably helped push your book and whatnot. Like,
well,
it rings a bell. Like, the name rings a bell. Like, people know who Posh Pete is.
But the thing is, I'm not posh.
Yeah, no.
People might think I am, but I'm not.
Yeah, I guess so.
Did it make you like when the thing is obviously, so this nickname, did it come afterwards, after like everything happened, or was it like?
Yeah, I
during?
mean, I was back in England by that. Oh, what, from my friend, you mean?
So what was this? No, from when the. So the reporter from the Sun.
Yeah, this was
right?
when I was back in England.
Okay, so this is after you'd been to prison, so this wasn't actually when you were when you were like active.
When the book was this.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, that's. I actually, for some reason, I thought that's.
So it wasn't a name tag during all of the antics.
No. Like, I mean, I've known people who have we had. People that I worked with had code names and one was the milkman, the station master. The milkman because he always delivered. The other one was the station master because he was always on time.
Right. Okay.
So nicknames like that and stuff.
Yeah.
I find it pretty interesting in the like. I guess you could call it criminal underworld, right? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, in the criminal world, right? I find it pretty. Obviously, I'm very sheltered. I've never like been involved in that life, so I'm just probably chatting shit. Yeah, I'm probably chatting shit, but I feel like it's pretty cool when you've got nicknames like that, and it's like meaning. It's like your calling card, like the Joker. Do you know what I mean? Like he's got his calling card. And
Did you see the BBC thing recently that To Catch a Scorpion?
No,
check that out. A podcast.
Okay.
Well, you should check out this podcast first.
Yeah,
that's another one.
Distracted podcast.
There are others available.
Yeah.
So Pete, you went to Cardiff Uni, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And how? So you started, you were arrested at 17, weren't you, for selling LSD and weed?
I was at sixth form college in Cirencester.
Oh, you Cirencester?
Yeah.
Oh, fair.
Well,
no, it's just I know quite a few people that go to uni there and stuff. It's quite big agricultural.
There's the Royal Agricultural College just opposite the sixth form college I was at.
Oh, okay.
It's literally across the road.
Wow, that's crazy.
So I got kicked out of there, expelled from the college. Someone had grasped me up, but so by that point I was already dealing every weekend, going to all the illegal raves. Selling loads of pills.
How much would you be like bringing in on a weekend, let's say?
I mean, it varied depending on what was happening that weekend. But I mean, this wasn't the big time.
No, just a bit of a
side hustle. Yeah.
Selling. I suppose at that point I was selling maybe a couple of thousand trips a week.
Still quite a lot, to be fair.
500 to 1,000 pills.
How much did it cost at the time? Like the actual.
Back then they were like 50p.
No way.
A pill.
The pill. Crazy. Sorry, no, the LSD.
Right,
LSD.
That's still crazy.
No, the pill.
50p for one thing of LSD.
Yeah, they were really
crazy.
cheap. Yeah, and we'd sell them for like £3 or £4 at the pies.
Yeah, I guess people just.
Yeah. But pills back then, I actually imported some from Holland, and we did get them for 50 cents.
50 cents.
Well, it would be it was about 50 pence because it wasn't euro cents, and it was still the Dutch guilder.
Yeah.
But it worked out to about 50 pence a pill, and they were really good. Rolex stamp, 250 milligrams of MDMA.
And the profit was, what were you selling them at? Selling them
wholesale, we were doing them at £5, and then they were going out at 10s.
Yeah.
Do you have a partner?
Nice.
Throughout my illustrious career, salubrious career, whatever the word is. Yeah, I sort of partnered up with people along the way, and then we'd sort of, we'd run for a while doing our thing, and then we'd split. Then you sort of team up with somebody else, maybe.
Did he ever get caught, or is he still just living?
Well, I mean, some of them did, some of them didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
There's several that didn't. They're now multi-millionaires.
Have they just washed their cash and living legit, or are they still in the game? Do you think?
Well, I've lost contact with several of them, but
fair enough. Yeah,
you know how it goes.
Yeah. Yes.
A lot of them are dead.
Yeah.
That's
to be honest.
The harsh reality of it, I guess, isn't it?
It's not. You can't really have much longevity in that career.
Well, this is what I always said. You're always going to end up either dead, in prison, or if you're very lucky, you'll make a certain amount of money and get out. But it just doesn't work like that. I've always said that the dealing of drugs is more addictive than the taking of them. Yeah. Because of the whole lifestyle, the sort of adrenaline hit that you get from it. That's what I think was a big part of it for me. It was the adrenaline of almost playing like a high stakes poker game with your life. I always loved chess as a kid, so to me it was like a game of outsmarting the police and working out how I could get around their systems and border controls and all the rest of it.
So would you say that is way more addictive? Because the physical.
Do you know what? I bumped into somebody yesterday. In a Tesco's in Stroud who I've known from the scene back in Stroud, because there's still, I mean, what it's like. There's still a drug scene in every town in Britain. True. And they're still involved, and obviously I'm not. And this is a woman, and she was like, "God, I'm trying to stay away from it." And I thought she meant the actual drugs. Well, I said, "Oh yeah, well that's good that you're not taking drugs anymore." And she went, "No, it's like what you used to say, that the dealing is more addictive than the taking of the drugs." She says, "I just can't stop doing it. It's like it's addictive." And I was like, "Yeah."
Wow.
So
you get addicted to the feeling of actually selling it.
Yeah, it's like being popular, and it's just, and it is. It's the adrenaline. I think is definitely a big part of it. I know there was some research done recently about people of your sort of ages, from sort of 18 to mid-20s, people are more inclined to look for thrill-seeking adventures and are more, immune to sort of the fear of getting caught and danger and stuff like that. 100%. So more likely to take chances.
100%.
And risk.
I feel like
I definitely was, for sure. I'm much more chilled out now.
And the thing is, with like we were saying before we started the podcast, these days, like with the influence of social media, everyone's like looking for the next adrenaline rush, and it's kind of like today I went and bungee jumped. It's just kind of like there's way more thrill seekers these days, and obviously because it's also documented, because they'll post it on their socials and stuff.
I suppose it generates more people. Yeah. Or encourages more people to do stuff like that.
It does.
I hope this doesn't encourage anyone.
How did you go from being a Cardiff University student to becoming a big time cocaine?
Yeah. So I'd gone to the uni at Cardiff, and having been caught at sixth form college, I had to stop dealing because I didn't want to jeopardise the chances of going to university. But when I got to university, being sort of entrepreneurial and always having had that streak in me, I instantly realised that all the students in the halls of residence I went into, which I presume are still there, Taliban, so like halls of residence, I think it was probably about 800 students there maybe, and no one could find any drugs, or hardly anybody knew where to get any drugs, and of course I did. All I had to do was pick up the phone people back in Stroud, old contacts that I still had, and get some drugs really easily. And you know what it's like trying to live on a student loan, and finances are pretty tight. So maybe me thought, oh well, this looks pretty easy, I can make some quick money, offset my student loan, not have to put pressure on my family and stuff like that, not rely on them because there wasn't any money there anyway, do you know what I mean? So started dealing again, and it went from buying a half ounce of cocaine, because I'd never really dealt with coke before then, I dealt a lot with all the other drugs, apart from heroin and coke. Heroin never. But anyway, so I went from a half ounce of coke that one student asked me for to quite quickly meeting local dealers around Cardiff who I got friendly with. They, we did a sort of dealer to dealer conversation on what your drugs like, did a comparison, price comparison, and I realised that I could also supply them, particularly with the cocaine, because the coke I was getting at the time was it was pure. 94, 96% pure. Wow. Uncut, straight in from South America. And I didn't realise at the time, but I was literally one step down from the person bringing it, or like the boss of the people bringing it into the country. So the original dealer that I got the half ounce from got cold feet because I started asking for like half a kilo every sort of 3 to 4 days.
3 to 4 days.
Jesus, they love to sniff at Cardiff Uni.
Well, no, it was because I started supplying the local dealers.
Okay.
And then, having started supplying them, I said to those dealers, I said, look, could you introduce me to the people that were previously supplying it? Some of them were like, oh, we don't think they take too kindly to you like stepping on their patch, and others were like, we'll make a phone call and see what they say. And quite a lot of them said, yeah, come and have a meeting. So I then went from dealers in Cardiff, it expanded even further to meeting people in Port Tower, which I mentioned earlier, Bridgend, Swansea, the Rhondda Valleys, all across South Wales, Newport.
So how did you get that contact though? So you're saying you're one step down from the guy bringing it in.
So the original dealer back in my hometown,
yeah,
when I started asking for larger amounts, he was used to dealing with quarter ounces, half ounces, ounce sort of level, and he was like, whoa, this is like getting out of my comfort zone now. So he said, look, I'll introduce you to the guy that I was getting it from, who was up near Oxford. So he took me out. I met the guy, and we became really good friends. And that's what I mean about teaming up with someone for a while. So then I was sort of, because I was getting everything through him, all the coke anyway. We, obviously you end up spending quite a lot of time with them. So we began out to London at least once or twice a week, coming back down with at least 2 or 3 keys of coke at a time.
Driving.
Yeah. Just get them.
How did that feel, having that amount of weight in your car?
He would drive, I would sit, and I would always keep it near me. So I was pretty fit when I was younger. So it would be like I'd be the one that was doing the running, or it would be like drivers get as far away as we can from the police, and then we'll bail it or run or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But we certainly wouldn't be stopping.
Yeah, has that ever happened? Did you ever get stopped?
I've been in police chases.
Oh, really? Wow.
Any crazy stories of them? Oh, you got away with all of them?
I can't go into that too much.
Yeah,
okay.
Fair.
But I left them for just.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Were you the driver then, or?
I can't say anymore.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Fair enough.
We don't want
no incrimination.
Mind you, not that I haven't incriminated myself with not much more. But some things are much more serious.
I guess.
I mean, that's all done and dusted, but
yeah.
I guess that's something that maybe could, potentially just,
move on from that.
So, do you think it could? Obviously, you said that it gives you an adrenaline rush when you, actually. So, do you think you were an addict? Do you think you were?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just.
I mean, I can safely say, my mum was an alcoholic, which was devastating for me and my sister when we were young. When she would drink, she'd become psychotic, and it was really disturbing.
Yeah.
So I've definitely inherited an addictive personality, or that gene. And like I said, I was definitely addicted to the adrenaline. The coke, I would tend, because I knew that I sort of had that streak in me. So when I was taking coke, I would normally try and do what I had to do in the daytime, and then I'd leave it till I'd done everything. I'd do it in the evening if I was going to do it at all. And I was never one for doing massive lines because it was so strong. I'd literally little line like that, and that would be enough for me, and I'd be like,
sorted for the night then, or
that is crazy.
how many?
Well, no, but I mean, to give you an illustration, of how strong this stuff was. I remember me, the guy from Oxford, and one of the guys with the code name that I was on about earlier, the station master. Actually, I don't know whether he's still alive. But anyway, the three of us were down in Malaga on business, sorting some stuff out, and they got a gram of coke, and between the three of us, we could not finish it that night. We were drinking, doing little lines, and it was so strong. 1 gram. We could not finish it. And I just left them to it. They were all about 20, 30 years older than me, the two of them. And I said, guys, I've had enough. And they were going, you're pussy. You're 20 years younger than us, and you can't keep up with us. I was like, I've had enough. And I went back to the hotel, and I was just like, fuck that.
So between 3 people, you couldn't get through a gram because of how strong it was?
Strong.
What,
and you were drinking and partying.
Isn't it? Actually, I've heard that, like, the purer the coke is, the more chance it has of killing you. So 99% pure coke can kill you. Like,
you could, you know, if you do too much of it, you could have a brain aneurysm. Your heart could explode. Obviously, you know, you eat enough chocolate, you could die.
Yeah, true.
But I mean, cocaine is obviously somewhat different.
Coke and chocolate. Yeah. I mean, it's quite fascinating because obviously having read up about how it watched like many videos on like how it works and how like it affects your brain and stuff like that. It's just.
In fact,
really
at this point, I do just want to say, because a friend of mine contacted me yesterday, and so this goes out to Tintin in Cheltenham. A good friend of his, whose name is Paul, his son literally just died in the Forest of Dean from cocaine that we think was tainted with fentanyl.
Oh no!
Literally about 3 days ago, and someone else in their same social scene group, a girl, also died from the same batch of cocaine, which I think is mixed with something it shouldn't be mixed with. And there seems to be a lot of that going on these days,
especially in America. I think they've got a crisis for fentanyl.
Yeah, and it's definitely on the streets here as well.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I just don't get it. Like, why are you gonna cut it with fentanyl? Why
well,
don't
exactly.
You just cut it with,
this
like,
is what
powder?
me and my friend had this exact same conversation yesterday. We were like, what is going on? Why are people? And the reason that someone has done that is because it makes it more addictive.
Okay.
So people are becoming really cutthroat. The whole scene, the whole cocaine trade has changed from when I was involved to now. And now, you know, a lot of it is run by the Albanians and various different factions, and it's a very different world to when I was involved.
So, would you say, obviously, I'm not going to say ethical, but would you say you were like much more ethical as a drug dealer per se?
I mean, if I knew something was strong, I would warn people. I'd say don't do too much of this because it is strong.
Yeah, fair.
And I'd say, like, just be careful what you're doing.
Would you cut it, or would you just sell it?
I have cut it in the past.
Yeah.
We used to use a cut called phenecytine,
right?
Which is an analgesic. So when I was doing the thing from Ecuador, what we would do, we'd normally get it back. We'd process it out of the rubber that we'd impregnated it into. So it was a piece of plastic, basically. So we'd back extract it, back engineer it until it was cocaine again. And then we'd normally bulk it out with something, well, with the phenecytine. We'd do a few tests, see how strong it was, wash it up into crack, see how quick it came back, and all the rest of it, do some tests.
That's crazy. So you were a scientist as well, pretty much.
Well, I mean, it's not mind-blowing chemistry. I mean, it just to some extent, the process of putting it into rubber and converting it into a piece of rubber is pretty. That's what
pretty cool.
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah, it is
to
some extent. I mean, it is pretty cool.
And that's what stopped. That's what got you through the checks.
Yeah, because I mean that meant that it wasn't able to be detected by scanner. Even like the new scanners coming in or that were coming in at that time, it couldn't be detected by X-ray. We could put a chemical in there that counteracted the reactive liquid test that they do, so we could get around that, and it would beat the dogs as well. So that's just about everything.
Did you ever get stopped in the process? Like
I mean, I presume you've seen.
I've seen a few things.
Yeah, so I did the first trip out to South America to Ecuador because I didn't want to start sending people to do something that I hadn't already done myself.
Fair.
And I wanted to see South America, and I wanted to meet the guy that was our contact out in Cali, in Colombia. So I thought, well, there's hardly any chance of me getting caught if the system's that good that I've been told it is. Then I'm not going to get caught, and it's the first it was the first job that we were doing, so the police are highly unlikely that they're going to know because we're only just starting. So I took the risk, but got stopped.
On the first time?
On the first one.
No way.
And got through.
Okay.
So what happened was I got to the airport in Ecuador, in Quito, and I'd totally forgotten about the luggage allowance.
Oh.
So I'd brought my family loads of like gifts of things like ceramic plates, like thick ceramic plates that weighed a lot, leather jackets, boxes of cigars, t-shirts. I mean, I'd gone a bit mad. Do you know what I mean? Just to, you know. And then I also had this 10-man tent that weighed about 40 kilograms on its own.
Why did you need a 10-man tent?
Because that's what it was impregnated in. It was in the ground sheet of the tent.
Okay.
So it looked like it was part of the fabric of the tent. So I rock up at the airport and I put all this on the scales, and they were like, "You've got about 100 kilos of luggage here. You came into the country with 20 and you've suddenly got 100 kilos." And they said, "Why don't you get rid of that tent?" Because they said, "You've got to lose some of this because otherwise you've got to pay a massive excess." And I didn't have the money on me, you know what I mean? Because I'd spent it all on kids. So there's me in the airport going, "Well, I can't get rid of that tent because obviously it's got 5 kilos of coke in it."
That's the one item you can't get rid of.
Yeah, so I'm giving away all these gifts in front of the airport staff, the KLM staff, to people that are working in the restaurants in the airport. And they must have thought, there's something wrong here straight away. The difference in the weight. Coming into the country is a lot less than coming out. Suddenly it's gone right up. I'm carrying this 10-man tent. I'm giving away gifts at the airport. So bing, up go all the red flags. I'm a single male. I bought the ticket with cash. All these red flags are popping up somewhere in the background. So I get on the plane, and I had to change it to Schiphol in Amsterdam. So I, got on the plane, took off from Ecuador. I was like, yeah, I've made it out, done it. Landed at Schiphol. And literally, there's a row of drug enforcement agents, Dutch drug enforcement agents, and all the passengers from the plane having to file through. And I'm at the back of the queue, obviously.
Yeah.
And I look down the queue, and one of the agents, police officers, looks down the line, and he sees my face, and he's obviously the guy in charge. Turns to all his mates, and he says something in Dutch. They all look at me. And I thought, right, I'm getting pulled. That's it. I'm done. I'm finished. They know. So they say, "Right, we need to talk to you." Put me in a holding room with about 30 other people. I think 3 or 4 of us were European, all the rest were South American. And my turn comes, they come and get me, start interviewing me. And when I was in Ecuador, went to the Cotopaxi volcano, did loads of tourist stuff. So I had a backstory, cover story. So they said, "Well, what have you been doing?" I said, "I've been to Cotopaxi volcano. I've got all these leaflets out. I've been there, been here." I hadn't, but it was cover. And I was expecting any minute them to pull out this tent and just plonk it on the table and go, "And what's that?" And I'm sat there and I'm just waiting for the moment. And they're running through all these questions, and I'm just trying to keep calm. I'm thinking I'm fucked anyway. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not going home. And about 20 minutes goes by of questioning or thereabouts. And he said, "Oh, sorry to delay you. You're free to go." And I was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Great." So I've got on the plane, and it was to Stansted in Britain. And I was thinking, there's no way they don't know I'm carrying drugs. So I'm getting all paranoid. I'm thinking, fucking hell, they must have told the British police that this guy's carrying drugs. Stop him when he gets to Britain. They must have done a deal to arrest me in Britain. That's what I'm thinking. And so we land, it's a short flight from Holland to Stansted. It's only like 45 minutes. So we land, get off the plane, get to the luggage carousel, and there's the tent going round and round. So I grab my bags, and I'm watching the tent. I'm sort of looking around. I'm thinking, fuck, shall I grab it? Fully expecting to be dived upon by loads of police.
Rugby tackle.
Yeah. So in the end, I thought, bollocks. I thought, I'll just grab it. I grabbed it. Nothing happened. And I walked out, just walked straight through customs, walked out, and suddenly I'm out of Stansted Airport. Wow. And I hadn't even told the 2 guys that I teamed up with, because by this point I teamed up with a Colombian and a Chilean guy.
Okay.
And that was our firm, basically, our partnership. And I hadn't even told them that I was coming back on the flight. I thought nobody needs to know the date I'm coming back. So having got through Ecuadorian, Dutch and British customs, that proved to me, and having been stopped in Holland, that proved to me just how good the system was that we were using of impregnation.
And I mean, that was your first time, so then you just got confidence.
Yeah, so then I was like,
complete
wow,
confidence.
this definitely is a full-on.
Yeah, you're gonna be making money.
Good system, because it was fairly new at the time. This, I'd heard of impregnating it into clothing and paper and stuff like that, but that was pretty basic. But really converting it into a piece of plastic or rubber was like, wow, that's pretty fucking far out.
Yeah, and was it in a tent every time, or did you
switch
it up?
because that was our MO basically.
So you were just bringing 10-man tents back.
We were doing we were doing other.
Right. Okay.
We were putting it into other things.
Yeah.
Like, for example, leather jackets, we put it into the shoulder pads, the arms. I mean, you think how many products rubber and plastic go into. We were going to do mouse mats for computers, put a layer in the middle, put like 20, 50 grams of latex in the middle layer of a mouse mat for a computer. I mean, there's just so many products you can put in. Roll mats for camping.
You're always one step ahead of the game. I think, like, always one step ahead of police.
Having been stopped at Schiphol by the Dutch police, that made me start thinking, why was I stopped there? You saying I was one step ahead. So that made me, because this is how I like to play. I like to minimise the risk. So it made me think, why was I stopped there? So I started reading up on customs and things, and I came across the Schengen Agreement, which we were part of at the time because we were still in the European Union.
Nations,
So under the Schengen Agreement, they stipulated that whichever country the plane landed in coming back from South America, whichever country it hit first in Europe, they had the responsibility to carry out the drug search. So that was why I got stopped in Holland and not in England. So then I realised that if we got the passenger through, whichever the first country was, because there were no direct flights into Britain from Ecuador or Venezuela, so we had to change somewhere in Europe. So if we got through that first country, we then knew we were basically in, because we were in the European Union then. So we then started doing things like we would buy a fresh return leg of the journey, a new ticket. So when the passenger flew out, they would have a return. But as soon as we got the tent and we got the passenger loaded, we'd buy a ticket that day prior to the original return date and get them on the plane straight away to a different destination. So the police, if they thought the passenger was coming back, we were waiting on the original return date at the original return destination. Whereas we would already have had them back in the country before that date. So that started causing the police loads of aggravation as well. They actually told me that after I got caught. So
they were pretty much like as if you were like toying with them a little.
It really became a game of cat and mouse, particularly because after a little while, the Colombian and the Chilean got arrested in a lab in Crystal Palace because they broke all the rules basically. We set a load of rules in place that, when we're doing the extraction, nobody knows where the lab is, obviously, because that was the weak point in the chain. Mm-hmm. Because then the drugs are static. There'll be not only the rubber, but the actual cocaine present as well. So it was like one of our absolute number one rules, and nobody is to know, apart from the people involved, where that lab is. What were they doing? I was in Cali at the time, sorting something out. We were sort of looking to upscale things from doing it with passengers to containers. So I was looking at buying 100 keys of coke in Cali and just making a lot more tents and doing it by sea, because it was a lot safer and a lot bigger chance of getting it through. So anyway, I was in Cali in Colombia. I'd sent a tent back from Ecuador. I'd then gone up to Cali. I was arranging another tent to go, and all the phones went dead in London. And the guy in Cali, his niece was married to my Colombian partner in London, living in London with him. So we phoned her up to find out what had gone on. And basically, the first tent had landed, and they were extracting it at this lab in Crystal Palace, but they were having all their mates in there, drinking, pulling up in cars, music blaring, partying, doing coke in there. And of course, the police raided the place. Yeah. What did you expect? Yeah. They get arrested. They put pressure on the Colombian. They threatened to deport all of his family. His father was a judge previously in Colombia, but had been living in London for years. Had a private car hire company. You know, they were settled. They'd been there years, but the police were going, "We're going to deport all of your family, your wife, your kids, everyone." So they put loads of pressure on him. Obviously, I found this out later on, and he became an informant.
And he
police.
ratted.
Huh?
And he ratted.
Yeah. So you know.
And that's
So that was the start. That was the beginning of the end, basically.
right.
So he was released after 6 months. People were saying, "Look, we think he's an informant," but you know, court cases get messy, and other people were saying, "No, it's the other guy's the informant," and it was like, and it all just became a bit of a mess. But as soon as he got out, started seeing signs of police surveillance around me, and I actually got warned through we had a third party who had a connection to a corrupt police officer in the Met in London, who I think got arrested not long after I got arrested. I never met him, but he was very high ranking, and he was supplying us with the surveillance notes. So we literally became one step ahead of the police because we knew what they were seeing, where we were being followed. But the third party in the middle, started playing me for money. So I was like paying him a retainer every week for the information, and after a few months had gone by, he started saying, "Oh, I need more money," and the information started not quite tallying with our movements. So I could tell that he was starting to just play me for money. So I said, "Look, I know I'm under surveillance now. Thanks for the tip off, but I'm gonna have to cut you loose, and we'll go our separate ways." But after that, it just became a full-on, flat-out game of cat and mouse.
Oof.
Not talking in any enclosed environments. We were really strict about that. We wouldn't talk on the phone, apart from to arrange a meeting. We'd normally leave the phones at home, go to the meeting, get out of the car, walk out into a field, out to the countryside, away from any buildings, any electronic devices, and just there, have a conversation. I remember in 1 year taking about 46 flights, across to South America, to Europe. Literally, sometimes I'd fly out to Hungary or down to Spain, like to Malaga for a weekend, or even for a day sometimes, just to have a conversation and fly back. But it was something we had to do. It had to be that tight.
Yeah.
Go on.
I just wanted. This is so interesting. Like so you must have wanted to kill this Colombian guy. Like it's just
6 informants in the case ended up dead after I got arrested.
What?
Yeah. One of the girls who heard, and one of our chemists got arrested in Edinburgh. That was the last lab that I was in. And I was actually nearly got arrested in amongst all that. We saw the police surveillance. I got out of there and I said, "Look, I'll get you guys out of here, but you got to go now." They're like, "No, we're not sure. We're going to stay." So I left them. The place got raided. Huge raid. That was on BBC Radio 1, 2, 3 and 4, ITV News. In 2005, check it out, raid on a lab in Edinburgh, in Leith. Wellington Place.
Gonna note that down.
Yeah.
So you got out and never been
at that
prosecuted
point
for that? Or?
Well, yeah. So at that point, I knew my time was ticking down. I knew they were on me. I remember having because they threatened to involve my sister, or tried to implicate my sister, and she was nothing to do with it. But she'd been staying at this place, the flat that I used as a lab, because obviously we got the lab. Well, I got the flat, but didn't activate it until I needed it. So it was sat empty for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. 5-bedroom flat in Leith, Edinburgh. It was lovely. Oof. So I said to her, because she was in Glasgow studying, I said, "Look, you can use the flat there, but when I need it, you're going to have to go on holiday or something. I'll pay for you to go to see a friend in Ireland or something," which is what I did. But the police, obviously, when they went through the door, they found some of her stuff, so tried to implicate her. So I actually rang the police up in Edinburgh and said, "Look, leave it out. She's not involved." And they were like, "We need to talk to you. You need to come in for questioning." And I was like, "Well, I'm a bit busy at the moment." They said, "Well, when can you come in?" I said, "Well, not for a while." So there were all these bad conversations between me and the police. Obviously, I went back down to England, and the Scottish law and the English law treated almost as two different countries. And I remember one particular conversation to the police in Edinburgh, and they said, "Oh, where are you?" And I said, "I'm in England." And they said, "When are you coming back up?" And I said, "Not for a long time." Never.
But leave it out.
Yeah,
Leave
yeah.
it out anyway.
That is bad. That's pretty badass. Just calling the police and be
Well,
like,
they-
she's
you know,
not
they-
involved. Leave her alone.
Well,
Oh,
that's,
actually,
you know,
mate.
honestly, when I rang out and you know, you get through to an operator at the police station, and I said my name, and there was a click and silence, and they're like, "Hold on a minute, we're just connected to someone."
I'm not paid enough for this. I'm telling you to my super. They must have been like, actually, Pete, we've been meaning to speak to you, mate.
For a long time.
It was quite a bizarre conversation,
Right, that is.
but I
pretty-
just couldn't have them doing that. Do you know what I mean?
No, yeah.
And yeah, no.
Especially when
So-
she's not involved as well. It's just not right.
It was
I
just,
guess.
but that's the sort of tactics they use. You know, they'll arrest your girlfriend even if she's not involved, which is ultimately what happened to my girlfriend. I'd only just got back together with her, and she came out to Ecuador when I got arrested, and she got arrested as well. And I said, "Don't go back to England because they will arrest you, just because you're my girlfriend, basically." And she came back to Britain and got arrested and ended up doing 7 years in prison.
7 years.
Yeah, they pretty much fabricated evidence against her.
No way.
What?
They said that every time that I'd sent her on holiday, because I'd sent her and her daughter to the Dominican Republic for holiday, they'd come to Amsterdam with me for one of my meetings, you know, but so they could have a look around Amsterdam. There were traces of cocaine on the bags. This is all the evidence they presented against her. Traces. Not cocaine, just traces. So they said that every time she'd been through customs that she was carrying cocaine for me. Not once was she carrying cocaine.
Well,
You think how much cocaine was around me?
Yeah.
There was traces of fucking cocaine
Yeah,
everywhere.
Yeah, on everything.
Every
and
fucking thing.
yeah.
Some of the bags we'd used for carrying shit around. Money. I mean, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was one of their key... I mean, honestly, her legal team must have been absolutely shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, you know, you can read all about it. But
So
she should not have gone to
Is she
prison.
out now? Or?
She's out. She's out.
Have
Are
you
you guys
spoke-
still together? Or?
No,
Yeah.
I bumped into her once, and she was like, not best place to see me, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I guess.
You know, and
yeah.
this, you
That's a
know,
tough one.
it is something that still plays on, you know, my conscience
Yeah.
a lot.
Did she know your activities?
I mean, like I said, we'd only recently got back together because we split up. I was together with her when I got arrested in Britain and went to prison for a while in Britain. So she knew what I was up to a little bit then, but I was trying to keep her away from it all. Do you know what I mean? You know, you don't want them knowing what you're doing, really, if you're doing illegal stuff.
Yeah, I guess.
Because you don't want them going to prison. So like I said, we'd only recently got back together, and she had no idea of the scale of what I was doing at all, because, like I say, we'd only recently got back together. She knew I was sort of involved with dealing a bit of coke. But
So that was a massive shock to her when she got
Oh,
7 years. I presume she's like, what the hell have I been involved in?
yeah, totally.
Wow.
I mean, I guess again.
But that's the sort of thing that can happen. you know what
Yeah,
I mean? So,
exactly.
you
Like
know.
it's not like she didn't fully know what she was getting into. Like at the end of the day, she knows someone deals a bit of coke, right? There's definitely a chance that this person goes to prison, and then obviously I'm
really
kind of
should
associate it. As
Yeah,
a-
but I mean, should she have done?
No.
Not for that.
No,
Certainly
no,
not for that length.
No,
anyway.
absolutely not.
7 years
Absolutely,
is just
7 years.
ridiculous.
7 years for like something you were completely oblivious to is absolutely.
I mean, the
ridiculous.
fact that the police said that she had been carrying cocaine at every time was a lie. So that was fabricated evidence.
There we go. No, this
And
goes
that
to
was
show the
genuinely
police.
that was genuinely not the case. So you know, in my mind, that was a miscarriage of justice. But
It goes
anyway,
to show what the police. The police.
the
honestly,
police
these days-
in Britain are the biggest gang. They are the gang.
Yeah.
They are the boss gang. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
whereas
it's
other
strange.
countries, I guess, they're the complete opposite, is it? Like in Ecuador, so the
How
police
did-
are ran by the crime bosses instead, are they? Or
To some extent, I mean, you know, in my time in Ecuador, I mean, you know, I was in prison for most of it. but yeah, I mean, the corruption levels there are just through the roof. It's endemic from top to bottom. I mean, Rafael Correa, the ex-president of Ecuador, was sentenced to 8 years in absentia for corruption. And I can tell you now, he was 100% corrupt.
Yeah.
Because I know people that were involved with him.
Yeah.
So, you know, that are now dead. got gang leaders that I was in prison with from the Choneros, Jose Luis Zambrano, who's now dead.
Wow.
But anyway, so the corruption out there is through and through. There are some straight police officers, straight prison officers, but not many.
Very few,
And most of them have got their price because it's a poor country and it is now pretty much a war zone. You've got the Sinaloa cartel from Mexico there, and the new generation Jalisco cartel, who are at war with each other, both vying for control of the port city of Guayaquil in the south, which is where most of the cocaine comes out from. Ecuador is basically a transit point for cocaine. It's sandwiched in between Colombia and Peru. Yeah. And it was odd thing that I've never really fully understood why they don't grow cocaine in Ecuador.
They don't grow it?
Not really, no. It seems to be they have a lot of labs on the border between Ecuador and Colombia in the jungles, and then again on the borders with Peru and Ecuador. Where all the base comes across, and they process it into the cocaine and then ship it out of Ecuador. But I don't know why they don't grow it there. It's always struck me as odd because it's it's on the same Andean mountain chain. They've got the same sort of altitudes. It's
there's
really
a gap in the market.
Could it be to do with the chemical?
One that I'm not feeling.
Get back involved. Could it be to do with the chemicals you need to have to grow it? So obviously a lot goes into it.
A lot of the chemicals, as I was saying earlier, the whole cocaine business has changed, and the way that cocaine is made now has even changed because the chemicals that they used to use, things like ether, which used to make a very much cleaner, stronger cocaine. You imagine the amounts of I think you need 7 liters of ether, or ether per kilo to make really good cocaine. So you imagine that's just 1 kilo, and you're making 5 tons, 5,000. You're talking about literally the guys that I was in prison with, like the lab guys, who were in for 9 tons, 8 tons, 5 tons. They were telling me they used to have tankers of chemicals turning up there from corrupt chemical companies because of the amounts of chemicals needed in the process. And what they've done is they've clamped down on the chemicals there. So things like acetone, ether, ethanol, methanol, all those chemicals, hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, all the key chemicals, precursor chemicals, are really difficult to get out of there now. Are all sort of banned and highly controlled. So now they've sort of stepped away from those chemicals and gone to the next best chemical down from those. So they're using chemicals that are similar but not as good. So the cocaine being produced now is not the same as it was when I was around.
Listen, and for any of you dealers out there, this is one of the goats talking about it. He was in charge of the game, so you guys need to step your game up. Tell them, Pete. Tell them.
They start making it better.
Can you tell us the story of how you ended up in Ecuadorian jail then?
Yeah, so after that raid on the lab in Edinburgh, I knew my time was up, and I knew it was only a matter of time before the forensics came back. About a month, I thought, roughly. So I sort of closed down all my bank accounts, cleared all those out, got rid of all my electronic devices, anything that could tie me to anything. And went down and saw my dad, saw my mum, said, look, I've had a problem, because it was all on the news, like I said. And my dad, when I got back to Colossus, was like, is this anything to do with you? And I was like, no. Well, he actually phoned me up and said, is this anything to do with you? And I was like, no. But obviously I got back to Colossus and off the phone. I said, look, come out in the house a minute, leave your phone inside, don't bring any phones out. We sat on the porch and I said, actually, it was something to do with me and I've got to leave the country. Really sorry, but the shit has hit the fan. So got a Turkish friend of mine who was in the Turkish mafia, called Oscar. He's somewhere abroad now. He's out of Britain. So hi, Oscar, if you're watching. So he was importing loads of alcohol, and I don't know what else, but Turkish mafia, you know what they're all about.
Mm.
So I said, we were doing things, this, that and the other. So I said, look, Oscar, can you get me out of the country? I know you're importing loads of alcohol and cigarettes and whatnot, but can you get me out of the country? He said, yeah, no problem. He used to call me Pitta, like pita bread. He goes, yeah, Pitta, because of his accent. So he turns up one night in his Mercedes car, and, obviously we'd arranged it all. And we drove down to the hover speed at Dover, and I jumped in the boot of the car. And the boot of a Mercedes car is pretty spacious, and I wasn't that big, so he jumps in the boot of the car, loads of luggage, in front of me. It's only 45 minutes on the hover speed, if that, straight across to Calais, straight through. At that time, because we were still part of the European Union, like I said earlier, it was much easier to do things like that. Now I know they search cars going out of the country, not just coming in. Mm-hmm. But then it was a piece of piss, quite frankly.
Yeah, it sounded like it was quite like a simple like process. And what were the Turkish mafia like? Like did you?
Well, I mean, I was only really involved with him and a couple of his associates, but they were. Well, yeah, they were pretty cool. They
helped. They gave you a pretty big hand there, to be fair.
Yeah. And then they brought a car over for me.
So they blessed you, like
well, he owed me a little bit of money. So he was good. He was a good guy though. He helped me out a lot. Got me out of the country. Didn't have to. So then I was in France, and my family have had a holiday home out there for quite a few years. So I just disappeared down to the holiday home, kept feeding the Colombian informant misinformation because by this point I'd sussed out he was an informant. Mm-hmm. We had discussed topping him, but we thought, his day will come.
Too much bother.
Yeah, it's like not worth doing a life sentence for. So, so anyway, I was using him to confuse the police, basically. So feeding him misinformation. Mm. And stupidly decided to do one last job with him, but I was going to rob him. So the plan was I said, look, organise a tent, get a tent down to Ecuador. So I flew out to Ecuador. I was waiting for a mule. This is where my girlfriend came out because I hadn't seen her for months. So I said, come out to Ecuador, spend a couple of weeks with me. I'm doing some business out there. So I arrived the first day from France, again, to fly through Holland, arrive in Quito, and as I come off the plane, there was a woman at the bottom of the stairs with a clipboard, and she obviously had my photo on it because she's looking at every passenger. And again, similar to the Dutch story, she looked at me, did the double take, obviously recognised my face from the picture, went straight into a back room. I get to the passport control, there she is again with the superior officer, and they said, oh, why are you here? And that's the first time it had ever happened to me going into the country. They said, oh, why are you here? What are you doing? And there's me stood there with like 25 grand in euros in my top pocket, in high denomination notes. And I was thinking I should probably split now, but stupidly thinking, oh, I've done this before, because we'd been in Venezuela, been under heavy surveillance, and got 2 tents out on the same plane under the noses of the Venezuelan police, under heavy surveillance from them. I mean, it was so blatant that they were watching us. Yeah. So that system, I mean, the system was just
foolproof. Yeah,
it was just awesome.
These episodes are sponsored by Wingerding.
Chapelala, and get yourselves down. Best wings in Leeds. Hit it up. I'll put on the @ here. Everyone go follow it up.
Respect. Thank you very much to our first sponsor.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Respect.
You've helped us out a lot. Get yourself down there. Get yourself some of their food.
And so I thought, because my levels of confidence are through the roof, and I'm thinking I'm not going to pay the Colombian anyway, and it's not me flying out the country with it. It's a mule. So, there's a good chance I'm going to get this out of the country, and I'm not going to pay the Colombian. And the plan had been, I'll rewind. So I land the first day, go meet the Colombian connect from Cali. He's got the tent, so I get the tent off him to exchange a bit of cash. Go back to the hotel, chuck it in the closet. So I'm waiting for the mules to come out. My girlfriend arrives the second day, I think it was. So I go and collect her from the airport, get back to the hotel, and I think that was about 6 or 7 in the evening by this point. So go down to the restaurant. We're having dinner. A European-looking guy comes in, and the restaurant was virtually empty. So a European-looking guy comes into the restaurant, sits 3 tables to my right, and I'm watching him, and he starts reading the menu. But I notice he's reading the wine menu, but upside down. He's obviously surveillance. So I said to my girlfriend, I said, "Have you seen this guy sat next to us? He's reading the menu upside down." Trying to make a bit of a joke of it, and she was like, "Oh yeah, that's weird, isn't it?" And I was like, "Yeah, it is, isn't it?" Not telling her why, obviously. Do you know what I mean?
How is that much of an idiot? You just read the menu upside. I swear you've got to be quite inconspicuous.
You would think so, wouldn't
right?
you? So, you know, all these little points, I should have left. I should have gone. But I'm thinking, I'm foolproof, bulletproof. I've done it before. It's not me going out of the airport. I'm not leaving the country with it. It will be okay. I'll get round the police again. You know, it's another game of cat and mouse. The Colombian had obviously told the police in London that this was basically their last opportunity to get me, because he got wind of the fact that I wasn't, you know, he knew that I wasn't coming back to Britain. So my plan was to send the tent back to Britain, have it processed, not pay him, me go back to France, go to Thailand to see some friends out there, spend 6 months in Thailand, you know, have the money transferred out there, and just see what else I could do. Just chill out, really, let the heat die down, hopefully. And that didn't happen, quite frankly. So we'd finished dinner and go to the hotel reception. I'd become quite friendly with one of the receptionists because I was using that hotel quite frequently. And she tried to warn me. She looked me dead in the eye and she said, "Have you been to the Galapagos Islands this time?" And I'd never been to the Galapagos Islands. And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, you really should go now then." And she was obviously trying to tell me the police were in the hotel and you should get the fuck out of here now. And, you know, I had my girlfriend on my arm going, and, you know, had a couple of drinks, and I was like, you know, whatever. Do you know what I mean?
It just flew straight, but
it didn't, because I've never forgotten it.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
So,
but in the moment,
it was like, but it clicked. You know, it's one of these things. It was strange, and it was just the way she said it. I wouldn't have got out of there anyway. The police were all over the place. So we get in the lift, me and my girlfriend, up to the top floor, down the corridor. I get the card key out there, put it in the lock, and all hell broke loose. There was Ecuadorian police with balaclavas on, machine guns out, plain clothes. I wasn't even sure it was the police initially, screaming down the corridor, going, "Get your hands up," in Spanish. "Manos arriba, no los mueves," you know, "Don't move," you know. And I just said to my girlfriend, I said, "Don't say anything, let me do the talking." So we get in the hotel room, and they go straight to the closet. They must have been in there when we were out at dinner. They knew where the tent was already. They get it out, and they say, "Oh, look what we found." And I was like, "Yeah." And I said, "Look, guys, is there any other way we can do this?" I said, I'll give you 25,000 euros now. Give me a phone, and I'll give you whatever you want, $50,000, $100,000, whatever you need. And you can keep the tent. You can have that. Just let us go. Do you know what I mean? Just pretend it wasn't here. And because the British police were involved and overseeing it, they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
But they would have done. Because the Colombian, who only had money, when I get arrested anyway, the Ecuadorian police say, "Oh, what do you think? We are corrupt with the Ecuadorian police." And I lauged. I said, "You are taking the piss, aren't you? You are. I know you're corrupt as fuck."
I know you. I paid you.
Yeah. I know your boss. You know what I mean? I'm sure we'd be pissed off. But anyway, so they arrest us, and when I eventually get the case papers, because the Colombian is doesn't turn up in the cells, and I'm like, "Where the fuck is he? If I got arrested, why didn't he?" This is the Colombian from Cali that's given me the tent. When I get the case papers, they stopped him in traffic. That's right. They said, "We lost him in traffic." They didn't lose him. They stopped him, took the money off him, and said, "Ciao, goodbye." You know, because he didn't have drugs on him. He just had a big fat bag of money. They kept that money and they lost him in traffic and had a very good payday. Yeah. Their monthly wage is like $500, And you imagine the shit they go through for that, gunfights, living on the edge of, like, every day could be their last for $500, and someone's got $40,000 in a rucksack. What are you gonna do?
You're gonna take it. I'd take it.
They definitely did. That's for sure.
Speaking of money, at your prime, let's just say per week, how much were you making? Like at the top of the game?
On the Ecuador thing, on each, more or less on each tent that we brought in, between the three of us, we'd each make between £60,000 and £80,000.
And how many were you doing? Like, just
we tried to do one a month. Sometimes we'd do two at the same time. So sometimes we'd have two coming in a month. It used to take about a month to 6 weeks to turn things around and get it all cleaned up.
Pretty good payday then.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But do you know what? That first time, that first one that I did, like when I got stopped, we processed it, cut it, got it all out, made it into about 7 kilos. I think it was 7 or 8 kilos, something like that. And we'd cut down the number of people we were dealing with, so we had like 3 or 4, less than that, even 2 or 3 people, I think, that we were just dealing with, that we knew were solid, that we knew that I trusted with my life, basically, because I was. So I'd sold the whole lot to one of them, came back, had a hold all with about £250,000 in. And the Colombian and the Chilean came down to Stroud, and we divvied it up. It took fucking ages to count all this. I mean, it takes a long time to count all this.
Do you not have
no, we didn't bother with all
just
that.
Just hand counting.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, I guess it's like in the moment, it's like, oh, you're actually feeling it. You're like counting.
But do you know what the mad thing was?
Money.
Counted it, split it up, took my part for carrying it through, because we used to pay the mules about 10 grand. So I took an extra 10 grand. We took out all the X's, because it was like running a business. So we take all the expenses out, take out the money we need for the next one, set that aside. So we each invested an equal part, equal shares and all the rest of it. And I had this, left over the pile of money, 60 grand, 80 grand, or whatever it was. And I was just like, not really interested in that. Can't really spend it at the moment anyway, because we've got to clean it. Put it away. What's the next? And it was just like I said earlier, the adrenaline and the attraction of the whole game. It was like, what's the next move? What are we doing? When are we doing the next thing? Let's start planning it now. It was like the money was an irrelevance. That's what it felt like at the time. It was weird. You think it'd be, oh great, you got loads of money,
live lavish.
I wasn't. No. I'd learned from getting arrested the first time when I was living in a manor house, and
What were you? So what?
Spending loads of money.
What's the silliest thing you've ever bought? Like just what's just like you look at it
now, I mean,
like, why did I spend that much money?
I mean, I was renting the wing of a manor house in Slad, which is a really beautiful little village on the edge of Stroud, where there's a famous author called Laurie Lee who wrote a book called Cider with Rosie. And the house is mentioned at its Steambridge Court, and I paid 6 months in advance cash to the estate agent at the time, because you could get away with it then. And it was about £1,500 a month. Amazing place, gravel driveway, it had its own lake, woodland. I mean, beautiful.
With inflation, that's what, like.
Now it would probably be like £3,500, £4 grand a month, probably.
Wow.
I'd guess something like that. It's a 5-bedroom Jacobean. Wing of a manor house. It was beautiful.
Cars wise, did you have any like?
There was like 4 cars parked on the drive. There was a Land Rover Discovery, a Mercedes compressor. Some of them were stolen. Ringers.
They call it. I think they call them dingers these days.
Yeah, they changed it from ringer to dinger.
Yeah, I don't know why.
That's so weird. Just change one.
I mean, I was hiring a lot of cars. This is before the Ecuador thing. But after that, after I got arrested in Britain, when I was living in this manor house and spending loads of money on hotels and just blowing money because I could, expensive restaurants all the time, a lot of money on hotels, spending £1,000 a night in a hotel, sometimes more. It was suites in the Balmoral in Edinburgh,
Jesus,
stuff like that. Hanging out with rock stars, literally people that I knew back in the day that we were selling to.
Are you allowed to?
No, I can't.
No, okay.
Some are dead.
I know. I've got an idea.
Some of them are pretty.
Yeah.
People. Anyway,
Yeah, let's just keep that to the imagination, probably.
So yeah, so I kind of learnt my lesson that, you know, not to be too flash with money after that. And I drilled it into the Colombian and the Chilean as well. I was like, because I knew they were going to go ballistic when they got the money, and I was like, don't go out and start buying expensive cars. You know, I was living in a 1-bed flat off the back end of my dad's house all the time that I was doing the Ecuador thing. You know,
low key, yeah.
Yeah, just trying to keep it low key. I mean, initially I was still painting and decorating as a bit of a cover, and then you know, that just fell by the wayside. Just a full-time drug dealer.
Yeah.
So probably shouldn't have done, really. Anyway,
you live and you learn, I guess.
Yeah. You would like to think so.
So when you're talking about like money wise, so as a how but there's obviously a temptation when you're making that much money. There's a temptation like, oh, I can afford to do this, I can afford to do that. Like how are you able to like keep yourself just locked in to like, I'm going to live in a 1-bedroom flat, live low key, have my front, and so that obviously that it's right for you to do that, because then no one will suspect anything.
Through necessity more than anything, and the fear of going to prison. Because I knew if I mean, the first time in prison in Britain was bad enough. I mean, they had me down as a potential Category A prisoner. You know, they really had. I mean, when I was in Gloucester Prison, the heightened security around me was crazy. They would shut the whole wing down just to feed me. I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody else. I wasn't allowed out. I had to exercise on my own in the yard. I was a potential Category A, the only potential Category A prisoner in the whole prison. And that went on for about a year. I'd get strip searched daily. They'd come in, spin the cell, like search the cell, just destroy it. All my letters photocopied to the police, visits behind glass or perspex. I mean, it was really full on. So they would like going back to the feeding. They would shut the whole wing down, put 2 officers behind me, 2 in front, walk me down to the servery to get my food, and walk me back to my cell. I was on the book, what's called on the book. So any movements in and out of the cell, they would make a note of where I was going, who I spoke to, what I did, where I went. I mean, all my phone calls recorded. It was nuts. And there's me like long-haired hippie raver going, what the fuck is going on?
So they're treating you like a serial killer.
It was, yeah, but at that time, this was after, you know, living in this manor house and being involved with all that lot up in London, and they were pretty. I mean, I was involved with some major crime people in London. I mean, really, like the biggest crime figures at the time. Just look them up at the time. I'm not going to say their names right now because they're free.
Yeah.
And they probably won't appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's wow. It's just a life, just a complete life, like you're just living on the edge.
Yeah, fully. Yeah, it was like that.
What? So you said you saw that £250,000, right? What was that? The most amount of money you ever saw?
No, I've seen more than that.
Ooh, are you allowed to say how much you've like?
No, well, a bit more.
Have you seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
So have you seen the scene where they like lie down on the pipe?
Yeah, no.
Was there nothing like that?
No, didn't do anything like that.
No, okay. Well, you know.
So was it 9 years you got in Ecuador?
No, I actually did 10 years, 10 days in total. I did 9 years and 2 months in Ecuador, or something like that. 9 years and something months out in it. I actually did that time in Ecuador. The sentence was 12. They wanted to give me 25, which was the maximum in Ecuador for any drugs. Like people that were in there for like 5 tons, 9 tons, they were doing 25s or 16s. Because it had like weird increments. It went from 8 to 12 to 16 to 25. There was no in-betweens. So anyway, as soon as I heard and saw the paper from the British police requesting that I'd be given a sentence of 25 years because they extrapolated from their figures that I'd imported at least 80 kilos, I think it was, they estimated. It was a lot more. Yeah. They even said in court, we know it's a lot more, but we'll never know how much, and they never will.
Yeah.
They can guess and think, but yeah, it was a lot.
They can
do first day you arrive in Ecuador in jail, what was that? What were you feeling?
Well,
like?
I mean, I was actually quite relieved because, I mean, I spent 5 weeks in the holding cells of Interpol, and that was grim. That was like a dark hole in the ground.
Right.
They didn't even feed you there, so the British Embassy were bringing in food every day. Luckily, they kept us alive.
They didn't feed you?
No, they didn't provide food. So the other inmates, families were bringing food in, so they would divvy it up between them. And if you were unlucky and you didn't have anyone, basically you were relying on the charity of the inmates. And that was one thing about being in prison in Ecuador that I really noticed, that nothing got wasted. There was always someone hungry there that you would offer any food you had left, or you would divide your food with, you know. So when I got back to Britain, I had a massive culture shock. You imagine after 9 years, in prison out there in a third world country. I thought, coming back to my own culture, I'm not going to have culture shock. How could I? It's my own culture. Coming back to Britain. Boy, when I got back, I was like, wow, it blew my mind. Everything had changed. I mean, there was the internet, Facebook, WhatsApp. When my sister told me about WhatsApp, I was like, well, don't you mean WhatsApp? She was like, no, it's an app called WhatsApp. And I was like, what's an app? She said exactly WhatsApp. I was like, well,
oh yeah, because you would have just been like.
It was during that period from 2005 to 2015 when I got out. The whole internet had blown up. I'd managed to open a Facebook account whilst I was in prison through some Russian friends of mine. They were Russian mafia. I mean, they were in there for 42 tons of cocaine.
42 tons.
5 container loads.
Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
42 tons.
Yeah.
In
fact, one was Ukrainian, one was Russian. So Ruslan Shevchenko, how you doing? If you're out there, he's I know I think he's out there. I was really good friends with Ruslan. He's a good guy.
Nice.
Shout out to Ruslan.
Good connection to have, I guess, probably.
Yeah.
When you're in that game.
If you want that game.
Yeah.
But what was the point? I've lost my track.
How was it like going into Ecuadorian jail? Was like
the
original.
So having spent that 5 weeks in the Interpol holding cells, which was a nightmare, we only saw sunlight for half an hour, I think, in the whole 5 weeks. So me and my girlfriend, they get split up because we were in the same holding cells, but across, it was like the women's and the men's across an enclosed courtyard, so we could talk to each other through a barred door. Anyway, we get transferred into the prisons. She goes to the women's prison, I go to the men's prison. And to be honest, I was quite glad to get there because, I get put on a wing with mainly foreigners. And the prison was an 18th century, 19th century prison built in like 1856, I think, called Garcia Moreno. So it was like a Victorian prison in England with a centre and the wings coming off it, like you see. Mm-hmm. Exactly the same as Gloucester Prison. So it was almost like being in Gloucester Prison, but abroad with sunshine. And it was like, this isn't so bad. Yeah. And loads of drugs in there. There was, at the weekends. In fact, all day Wednesday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, your visits came into the wing. So there were restaurants in there, shops. A Colombian friend of mine was running the bakery in there. So there was, every wing had its own shop, a restaurant. And your visits would come into the wing and into your cell if you owned a cell. So you could buy yourself a cell, about $2,000, TV, DVD, fridge, get it I had mine rewired, replastered, retiled. So it was so corrupt. You could have whatever. You could have shopping brought in, your laptop, your phone. Just pay the guards off.
Kind of like La Catedral, like for Pablo Escobar.
Yeah,
but
totally.
Obviously on a smaller scale.
Yeah. So I mean, you could literally. It was. I was kind of relieved when I got caught in Ecuador, because I knew that I could either bribe my way out of there, bribe the judges to get a lower sentence, or if all that failed, try and escape. And I did all three.
Yeah.
So straight away they're trying to give me 25 years. So obviously I start bribing the judges like crazy. The checkbook came open. It was like I spent about $125,000 on bribes, paying the judge, paying the lawyer. I got my girlfriend out because she got arrested. Got her out after 3 or 4 months. Said, don't go back to England. Go to Spain. Arranged a flat for her in Barcelona with some friends there. I said, go to Barcelona and just sit it out. Wait there until the case has been dealt with in Britain. But don't go back to Britain because they will arrest you. And she was like, I'm not involved. Why would they? I haven't done anything wrong. I said, they will. And sure enough, like I said earlier, they did, and she got 7 years.
You did warn her, to be fair. You did warn her.
You know, I did as much as I could.
Mm.
I even said, look, if you do get arrested, I'll put a statement in for you saying that you're not involved. It was all me, all the rest of it. You know, that you're nothing to do with it. I'll do whatever that you need me to do to get you out of this. And you know, she got back to Britain. I didn't really hear from her much after that. You know, her legal team said don't have any contact with him because it won't look good. But anyway, yeah. So I start bribing the judges. Obviously, spent all that money, and it helped to a certain extent. But the police got wind of this, British police, so they fly out to Ecuador, get me in a fucking interview room, and say, right, we know you're trying to bribe the judge. If you get less than 10 years, sentence to less than 10, or serve less than 6, we'll let you finish your sentence here and then extradite you at the end, because they did talk about extradition at the beginning, but they decided to leave me to rot in Ecuador. I think they thought I was going to get killed or end up dead, one way or the other, which I very nearly did. So they said, if you get less than 10 or serve less than 6, we'll let you finish your sentence here, then extradite you back to Britain and re-sentence you to a minimum of 20, and it's probably going to be more like 25 upwards in England. And I was like, okay, well, thanks for the warning. So I actually had to tell the judge in Ecuador, don't give me less than 10, because they were going to give me 8, because I was paying them. Can you imagine having to tell a judge not to give me less than 10 years?
What did they say?
So they said, yeah, we'll give you 12, and then and then we'll wait a while, wait for the heat to die down, pay some more money, we'll do an appeal, we'll get it half to 6, you'll do 3. That was the plan.
Oh.
And they were fully up for it as well, paying them all off, it was all going smooth. And then I tried to escape, because it was taking a bit too long. So, you know.
Got cold feet.
What was the method to escape?
Well, there were various. So I became really friendly with some FARC, FARC guys from Colombia who were in the prison in Quito, and got really pally with them. Started doing stuff with them in the prison. Bought a gun, so we had a gun between us, so for self-protection and stuff. So I kind of started running the wing that I was on, and they were running another wing, and then we were sort of teamed up. And we decided, you know, they weren't really getting out, and my whole case wasn't looking particularly great because the British police haven't arrived there, and, you know, all the rest of it. So we decided to try and escape, and they said, look, we can organise a helicopter lift off the roof of the prison, but it's going to cost about 100 grand. I was like, it's a bit expensive, and it's quite high risk. So next level down was try and bribe the guards, and that was all a bit complicated and quite sketchy. I had a few conversations with some of the guards. You know, they were offering this, that, and the other. Because some people were getting out like that. They'd bring in a uniform, dress you up in a uniform, and take you out on their shifts. So that was one idea. Anyway, the idea that we settled on in the end was a tunnel, because that prison was so old. It was a running joke that if you dug a tunnel underneath it, you'd come across at least 2 or 3 other old tunnels from previous escapes. And it was true. It was like a rabbit warren under there. So we bought, if you look at a photograph of Garcia Moreno prison, at the time there was only one, the exterior wall was one concrete block thick. So that was the other one. Was an RPG. We were going to blow the wall. They were going to lay down covering fire from their FARC pals on the gun turrets, lay down covering fire, blow the wall on the exercise yard of B-Wing, because it was a big exercise yard, and have a mass escape.
You were literally playing real life GTA.
Yeah, it was quite cool. It was good fun. Anyway, we settled on a tunnel. So we bought the penultimate cell on B-Wing, which... There's the external wall. The end of B-Wing was the external wall, was a part of the external wall. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have far to go. So we bought that and staged a fake party to cover the noise of breaking the floor. And don't forget, in this prison, there was a hardware store as well. So you could get power tools in there, chisels, you could get cement. Because people...
They're asking for you to escape.
Yeah, like I said, I had my cell re-plastered,
redone,
rewired, so you could get whatever you needed in there, power tools. But to mask the noise of having to break the concrete floor, to make a hole, we staged a very loud party because we allow sound systems in there, paid for a load of people to get drunk and high and whatnot on a visit. Cracks open the floor. We'd already made a concrete cap, and we paid people to start digging a tunnel, and got quite a long way because went out underneath the exercise yard and just followed the line of the wall of the wing, and obviously the tarmac of the exercise yard. So just followed that, and got quite a long way out, and then the guards got wind of our numerous escape plans. And they split us all up, me, the Colombians, and sent us all to different prisons all around the country. And I got sent to the third most dangerous prison in the whole of South America at the time, in Guayaquil. So I started in Quito, do 2 years there, try and escape, bribing the judges, blah, blah, blah. And the British police, I think, had probably notified the embassy that this guy's trying to get the fuck out of there. So get transferred out of the blue, ghosted, as they call it, down to Guayaquil, and that was a whole different ball game. I arrived in Guayaquil, and that prison, Quito, there was about 1,400 prisoners there. Guayaquil, 8,000 inmates, split roughly in half, 26 wings, so one wing here, one wing there, and a long corridor about 1 kilometre long, running down the middle, all the wings running down like this, facing each other, so one wing in front of the other.
1 kilometre long?
Yeah, the police used to ride up and down it on a motorbike. I shit you not. And halfway down, there was like a border, no man's land, and you could not cross that because there was one gang at one end. At the time, it was Los Rusos, not the actual Russians, but they were nicknamed the Los Rusos.
Mm-hmm.
And at this end, it was the Los Cubanos, the Cubans. And I end up in this end with the Cubans, the Cubanos, who were 3 brothers. One was dead already. Cayman and Betrayal. What was the other one? I've forgotten his name now. They're all dead now anyway. But so completely different ball game there. So they're at war with each other, these 2 gangs, and the whole prison's just completely gang controlled. They had every guard on the payroll. The director of the prison was getting paid, so any new inmates coming in would get extorted straight away. So the guards would notify the boss of the side of the prison that they were friendly with. Oh, there's a new prisoner here. We think they're worth X amount of money. We'll bring them to your wing, extort them, and then they split the money between the guard, the director, and the gang. They were selling all the drugs. They had tight control over the drugs. They controlled the telephone, so you couldn't have a mobile telephone there like I did in Quito. So you had to pay for phone calls. There were no payphones in there, so no postal system. So they had it locked. They were selling cells, but you couldn't then resell it. They just take it back off you. They were making hundreds of thousands of dollars a week in there. Lots of money.
So they just completely.
They preferred being in prison.
Yeah, because they were making a stupid amount of money from it, from
they had
mostly legal things, really.
Some of it, they were putting 10 cents. Yeah, it was
to sell a cell.
Yeah,
really?
yeah. Of course it was. They weren't supposed to be selling the cells.
Oh yeah, but it's fair. No,
fair. But other examples of semi-legal stuff, they were putting 10 cents on each bottle of Coca-Cola or Fanta or Sprite that came into the prison. You imagine 8,000 prisoners in there. On visit days, you could have 20 visits come in just to see you, to see one person if you wanted. There was no limit on the number of people you could have come in. So on a visit day, 8,000 prisoners, the prison would swell to 30,000 people in there or something. Jesus. It was rammed. All the restaurants would be absolutely packed.
They'd have restaurants in there as well.
Oh, yeah. There were swimming pools in this one.
What?
They had the gang had it that locked in there. They had swimming pools. They had cockfights. Cockerels fighting cockerels. They were breeding them in there. I would see it like the cockfights going on, and the exchanges because you had money in there. they'd be pulling out rolls of like they'd be betting 5 or 10 grand on a, between themselves on the cockfights, the gang members.
So they're just this, like pretty much just anarchy.
It was. You say that it wasn't actually. It was because they were the controlling element.
Okay,
Anarchy came when the government started a crackdown, and because on each wing. So you imagine there were the 3 brothers at my end of the prison. Underneath them there was a pyramid scheme. So on each wing they had a boss. Under him there was a boss for each drug. So there was a boss of the coke, boss of the weed, and a boss of the crack. Boss of the alcohol. So there were the 4 bosses for the different drugs and the alcohol. They were in charge of each thing. So they reported to the boss on each wing. So it was all payments filtering back up to the 3 guys running it, who had like an army around them with machine guns, handguns, explosives, hand grenades, and there'd be regular shootouts in there. Murder rate 5 to 6 a week. There'd be bodies turning up in the rubbish, people to come. I mean, literally, I've seen people killed every which way you can imagine now.
Wow.
Hacked to death, shot, poisoned, strangled, blown up, drowned in the swimming pool. I mean, everything you can imagine. Electrocuted, everything.
So how many people do you reckon you saw die, like in total? Like, are you just completely?
I've had
desensitized
this thing through my whole life. Death has followed me. That same friend of mine that nicknamed me Posh P, or his posh little English buddy, also called me Grim Peter, like the Grim Reaper, but Grim Peter.
This guy's got some pretty good.
I mean, it's funny, but it's not. I mean, literally, from the age of 14, my best friend died from a brain hemorrhage. We'd been out for a game of tennis in the village I grew up in. Came home, he went home for a shower, died in the shower, brain hemorrhage. And from that age on, by the time I was 20, I'd seen 8 people die in front of me. By the time I was 20, from some drug overdoses, but just because the others were like car accidents, someone had been hit by, and then a couple of heart attacks as well, and it just seemed to follow me. And I've had so many people die around me, you would not believe. I've stopped counting. I've had 2 girlfriends die.
Yeah, Pete, it was very nice to meet you. I think we're going to wrap it up, guys.
But honestly, so yeah, I don't even count anymore. It's just many.
It's just, it must have you completely, seeing all that stuff, people dying in all these grim ways, must have you completely desensitized.
Yeah, I mean, I went through several shootouts. I gave him a plate of food, because a 3rd gang came into the prison, who are now one of Ecuador's strongest gangs, affiliated to the Sinaloa Cartel, called the Choneros, who I mentioned earlier. They came into the wing that I was on, so there was about 15 to 20 of them came in, all on murder charges. And the boss, Jose Luis Zambrano, that I mentioned earlier, was on my wing. I was really good friends with his brother. I'm still in contact with his brother now. Jose Luis is dead now. He got released, got shot after about 6 months of being out in a cafe. I got sent a video of it happening.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So what, from the rivals or from his brother?
Well, it was just on social media out there, and someone sent it to me and said, "Look what's happened." Do you know what I mean? What was the question again? Sorry, I forgot. I'm getting tired.
It's just
desensitized.
Desensitized.
Yeah, so the gunfight. Yeah. So this 3rd gang had come in, so it destabilised everything. And the Cubanos decided to try and kill Jose Luis and several other members of this gang. So there was this massive gunfight one night, and it all kicked off when I presented a plate of food to this guy nicknamed Gato, who was like the right-hand man of Jose Luis. And as I gave him the plate of food, someone came up behind me and opened fire over my shoulder from behind me. He shot him straight in the face, blew the back of his head out right in front of me. And that gunfight went on for about 2.5 hours in an enclosed wing. We were open 24 hours a day there on the wing. Your cell door was open 24 hours a day because the gang were paying the guards to keep it that way. Locked into the wing but open. So you'd lock yourself in when you'd had enough. So anyway, 2.5 hour long gunfight. I think it was 2 hours actually. Anyway, it was long.
Long time, yeah.
And 2 or 3 people ended up dead, about 15 injured. So.
Wow.
But yeah, so ultimately, one of the worst things about being in prison out there was not knowing when your turn might come, because it was so violent and could kick off just like that you never knew when it was going to happen.
So you're just always on edge.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So every day I didn't know whether that was going to be my last, and that was one of the worst things about being in prison for 9 years and a bit out there. I just didn't know whether I was going to see the end of the day.
Just 9 years living just living in
It's,
just
you know,
absolute paranoia.
Yeah, full on.
Wow.
So ultimately, I ended up with complex PTSD, which has got a lot better now.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to deal with it.
We were gonna ask you about that. Like, how has that affected your day-to-day life? Like, and what obviously, it's really good to hear that.
Yeah.
Like, it's much better because, I'm not gonna lie to you. Anyone that would have gone through what you've gone through would have had probably the same, if not worse. Do you know what I mean?
So many people say to me, "We can't believe you're still sane after having gone through everything you've gone through."
Yeah.
You just have to go on and deal with it, which is, I'm sure, a lot of other people will tell you. When you go to prison, you just have to deal with it and just make the best you can of it.
It's the right mentality to have. If you just don't do that, then it's gonna go by much slower.
But yeah, I mean, when I got back, it did take me a while to readjust, and I was quite edgy around bangs, loud bangs, because of obviously all the gunfights and hand grenades going off around me and stuff like that. So any loud bangs, I'd be ducking for cover, stuff like that. But I'm a bit more chilled now.
That's good.
Yeah, there was just a lot of stuff like that.
I mean,
writing the book, El Infierno, look it up. It's on Amazon. It's called El Infierno, My Time in Ecuador. Published by Penguin. But anyway, writing that book was a cathartic experience and really helped with the PTSD, to be honest.
Kind of letting it go, right?
Because I had to sort of relive it all, and to be honest, doing these podcasts I think has helped as well, because it's the same sort of thing as counselling. So you're my counsellor. Thanks everybody. It's much cheaper than paying one.
True. That is true. I mean, I feel like also getting your words out onto paper is a lot. It's quite therapeutic.
It definitely helped a lot. I'm glad I did that.
Did you ever, kind of changing the topic, did you ever meet any of the so-called South American kingpins like Escobar, the Gallardos?
But I was in prison with some of the Sinaloa cartel, one of their capos, one of their pilots.
Wow.
The pilot is now dead. He got shot down by the Colombian Air Force when he got out. Went back to flying Cessnas.
Oh, did he?
He was called Topo. His nickname was Topo, or the Mole. And he was mad. He told me stories about it. He'd take off you've seen on YouTube them coming down a jungle, down the side of a mountain in a Cessna with 1.5 tons, 2 tons of coke in the back. And he said he used to fly around with a top pocket full of coke, and he'd be sniffing coke, flying through the clouds, getting really high and getting paranoid, seeing things in the clouds that weren't there. Or maybe they were there, I don't know. Because unfortunately he got killed, he got shot down.
Were you able to, obviously, it's probably a stupid question, but were you able to learn Spanish very, very well?
I became fluent in Spanish. I mean, I had to. It got to the point where I actually started forgetting my English, and the Spanish would come first, because I was that immersed in at times I was on wings with no one that spoke English, so it was just 24/7 Spanish.
For 9 years you will lose track of English.
But you pretty much are Bolivian, at that point,
Ecuadorian.
Ecuadorian.
I was 29 when I got arrested, 39 when I finally got released back in Britain. But 9 years of that was out there, so I'm almost a quarter Ecuadorian.
Intense time,
pretty much. Yeah, wow, yeah. If you put it like that, that is true.
Yeah. When you think about it.
So, for anyone watching, Pete and I spoke before the start of the podcast, and I just want to ask you this question again, just so that everyone can hear it. So, is it true that you can, and you still can, rub cocaine between your fingers and instantly tell where it was from?
Pretty much. I mean, obviously I know people that are still involved. it's become harder, like I say, because they're making it different. It's made differently now. Back when I was doing it, you could pretty much tell where it come from by the colour. So Bolivian would always be much whiter, much a purer white. Obviously, cocaine, when you test it between your fingers, has to be very oily, almost like butter. So if there's any resistance when you rub it between your fingers, you'll see it's cut. So anything, if you do that a couple of times, you see any powder or anything left, or if you feel any resistance, you know there's cut in there. So you want to feel it. It's like almost like butter. And then you smell it, and if you can smell ether, you're onto something good, and that's probably Bolivian, because that's one of the countries that still use ether wash. Peruvian tends to be the yellowy one, and then Colombian would be a mix between the two. So that would be a slightly different colour.
Wow,
But yeah, you can definitely, like coffee. I mean, you could tell. Sort of.
Yeah,
you could pretty much
Around
tell
it
where
that
it's from.
much, I guess, yeah.
Wow, that's just obviously, like, I know nothing about this, but it's like crazy how, like, you've obviously been around it.
That's it. I mean, when you're around
that,
it all the time, you learn.
Yeah, true.
Probably quite fast as well.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is the difference between old cocaine and new cocaine these days?
Like I mentioned earlier, it's just made differently. There's different chemicals that I don't think are as good, and also I think it's been cut at source. So you imagine they're making a ton of cocaine, 1,000 kilos as an example. They only have to put 10% cut in there, which you're not really going to notice here, and that's an extra 100 kilos. That's a lot of money.
That is
So
true.
for a 10% cut, which is virtually nothing, it will drop it down from 96 to 86% pure. Probably
Still another 100 kilos worth for
it's
free,
another
pretty much.
that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you see the maths involved and the money. So I have my suspicions that they've got wise to it, and that it's possibly being cut at source. If not at source, it's definitely getting cut when it hits Holland.
Yeah.
And the Albanians are masters at that. They like putting it back together, putting in stuff like boric acid flakes, which looks exactly like cocaine, or that pig worming stuff. I can't remember what it's called now, but anyway, there's various cuts they use that look exactly like cocaine. They just mix it together and repress it. There you go.
Just proper, like, actual, like, industrial production of
Oh, yeah.
cocaine.
At the mass scale.
I've seen recently on the news. I mean, a lot of this I get from the news, obviously, because I'm not involved anymore. But I've seen on the news recently that they're now people have upscaled, like the methods that I was using on a smaller scale. They're now finding super labs in Holland where people are using because it's so hard to import cocaine in block or powder form now, that they're using the impregnation method in rubber or I mean, there's so many things you can impregnate it into: wood, plastic, paper, material. I mean, it's just a multitude of things. So they're finding these super labs in Holland and Europe that are extracting cocaine on like literally an industrial scale, where it's been impregnated, and they're back engineering it because it's so much easier, so much safer for them to get it through the border impregnated. So there's a lot of that. I predicted that would be the future of cocaine trafficking when 9/11 happened, and I saw the heightened security, and I read about this method of impregnation then, and I was like, that is going to be the future of cocaine trafficking, because scanners were only just coming in then because of 9/11, and people were starting to get caught inadvertently because of the heightened security, and I could just see the future basically.
Yeah. Well,
I wish I could see it now.
Yeah, you.
I guess get a lottery ticket.
Yeah, you predicted it well. To be fair, though, because that is exactly what's happened. And wow, 9/11 really just switched up the security game, because there was, like, you could bring quite a few things that these days it's just like, why would you even be allowed to bring that? After everything that, but that's because of the experiences that us humans have had. We obviously live life and, like, being as careful as possible. Which is so. I'm gonna ask you the
Right.
final few questions
Yeah, yeah.
here, and
Okay.
there's one that I really wanted to ask you. Obviously, without condoning any of it, but what would your advice be to drug dealers in 2024? Like,
In what way?
If so, let's say after we finish this podcast, let's say I go out and I meet with Top Dog A, and I pick up
What advice on how to do it?
So
in a good.
like, so what like, or to make the most money possible.
Can I really say that? Because I mean that is kind of condoning it, really, isn't it? I mean,
I guess like without.
I mean, top tips for a drug dealer: definitely stay away from electronic communications.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that got involved with EncroChat, look what happened. I mean, I was telling people at the time, you're mad using that. It's going to get busted. They're not going to let that carry on.
Mm-hmm.
So stay away from electronic communications, telephones, anything electronic. Even just sat around having a conversation anywhere near any electronics is a big no-no. Do it all face-to-face if you can, outside of enclosed environments as well, because obviously they can be bugged.
Mm-hmm.
Not in your car, that could be bugged. Just assume that you're being watched. Just assume that you're
be paranoid.
Yeah,
pretty much,
just assume that you're being watched and that the police know about you, because that way you'll be extra safe. Yeah. And always get the best product for the cheapest price, and if you can, cut out all the middle people, go direct to the source, and get the best product. And don't cut it with fucking fentanyl shit that kills
Don't
people.
be a dick. Don't kill people, man.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, cocaine kills enough people already, but cut it with something that will properly kill them.
What's the like? Do you have any regrets? Like, if you could go back and change anything, what would it be?
I mean, I asked this a lot, and it's at the end of the day, it's, you know, my life has been what it has been. I mean, obviously, I would have preferred to have been a doctor. If I would have been. I would have been a good doctor.
Yeah.
I nearly joined the Avon and Somerset ambulance service to become a paramedic after I left uni. Because at that time I only had that one minor conviction for cannabis, and I actually phoned them up, got the forms, everything, filled them out, and they said, we can swerve the conviction, but you have to have a clean driving license. I filled the forms out. The day I go to post them, what comes through the letterbox? A speeding ticket from a Gatso camera in Manchester, from one of the first ever fixed, like,
Nah.
I swear to God. And me being me, thought it was destiny that I wasn't supposed to be a paramedic. Carried on dealing. And didn't send those forms in.
Final few questions, and
Okay.
I got we got some a new segment in in the podcast.
Is this a bit like Desert Island Discs?
Yeah, there's a few, yeah.
Quick fire.
These are called quick fire questions. So
okay.
we've got 10 questions, right?
Yeah.
And you just answer them straight. First thing that comes into your mind.
Okay.
Ready?
Go.
Right. So number 1, Colombia or Bolivia?
Bolivian.
LSD or mushrooms?
I'd have to say LSD because I've done so much of it.
Handgun or semi-auto?
Depends who you're trying to kill.
Yeah, fair. Money or happiness?
Happiness.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I thought you'd say.
Yeah.
I thought you'd say that. Family or success?
Family always.
Mm-hmm. Invisibility or teleportation?
Do you know what? I 100% telepathy I believe in, because me and my girlfriend do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done it with so many other people out there that will probably remember. Telepathy definitely exists.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. You can be connected to someone.
So I'll go with telepathy.
Okay. Club night or pub night?
I've never been into pubs, so I'd have to say club.
Okay. Cash or digital?
Cash always. Cash is king.
Cash is king. Yeah.
Digital has its benefits, but yeah, cash is king.
Arse or tits?
I'm not answering that.
No, okay.
My girlfriend would kill me.
Fair. We thought we'd add that in. Plane or boat?
Depends what you're trying to smuggle.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Cocaine, let's say.
Oh, it'd have to be by container these days.
Yeah, a lot of it gets through. There was a massive seizure. Wasn't it?
They only search 3 to 4% of all containers coming through the docks, and all of that is intelligence led.
So you have to get really unlucky, pretty much.
They have to be told it's in there, basically.
Are the people in the docks corrupt as well? Like the people.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's corruption in docks in Britain, not to the same degree as South America, or like Rotterdam, which is massively corrupted. But it definitely goes on. It's just better covered up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Was that 10?
That was 10. That was 10.
Damn, that was quick.
Yeah,
exactly.
Quick fire segment.
So you've now gone like legit on the straight and narrow, like just an everyday citizen, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's hard work. I'm painting and decorating. If anybody wants some really good painting and decorating done, I hand paint hand fitted kitchens.
Oh.
Really expensive kitchens.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So it's
Do you find it? Do you find like some people recognise you when you go into do
I
these
have
jobs?
had a couple of problems. Yeah. I had a job in Blackpool. Went in and the woman or maybe her daughters recognised me or something, and it was a bit of a problem.
What did they say?
They let me do the job, but apparently I didn't get told till afterwards. But they were screaming at my bosses.
Yeah.
Why? Well,
exactly. This is it. I've done my time.
You've left.
I did the crime. I did my time. I paid. I'm out. I'm trying to do beneficial by educating people.
Exactly.
I've been going into schools. I do other talks. I'm trying to help.
Exactly. Well, you're trying to warn people so that this is like trying to tell you cool stories, but like don't get into it because it's peak.
Yeah, exactly. And she was just not having any of it. This woman. So,
but also when you have like plasterers, a lot of them are people who have like come out of like a criminal background. So you're all right with having someone who maybe like went to prison for like I don't know, killing someone and then is now out and like just being like a.
I've got to say this as well whilst I'm on here. And I have said it a few times before. A lot of those courses like paint and decorating, because I learned. My dad was a builder, but I learned to paint and decorate in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those courses they've got rid of now. They should reintroduce painting and decorating, bricklaying, electricians courses, plumbing, because there's a massive shortage in all those trades.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people in prison are really good with their hands and are that way inclined. It would give them a trade for life, so they would be able to get out, go straight into a job, because there's loads of jobs waiting out there for them in those trades, and take care of all of that problem.
Yeah, I think the UK prisons just don't focus on reforming.
No,
they just completely dismiss
it's just become a case of storage.
Yeah,
storing the problems up for later generations.
It's not going to work. And you get other countries that do it well, I think, and we just seem to have a massive issue with it.
Yeah, it's just getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah,
they should reintroduce all that.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I mean, because otherwise you get out and you just go back into crime. Don't
yeah,
you?
exactly. I mean, what are you going to do if you come out with you get given £30 and a travel pass to nowhere?
Some fags.
I mean, what are you going to do if you got no home, you got no family support network or anything like that? What are you? You got to survive.
Back to it, aren't you? Yeah,
fags, £30, bottle of water. Newspaper, off you go. That's I just don't.
I don't know. They
don't
go.
I just named like three.
You're dreaming, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like it's just I don't think again you've committed a crime, right? Obviously, if you get caught for it, you have to serve the time, and that's fair, right? Because otherwise, we wouldn't have prisons. But they've got to have more of an emphasis on actually. It's not like as soon as this person comes out of prison, it's not my responsibility anymore, because that is the truth. But also, you want this person to not reoffend.
Exactly, that's the key.
If you can't get hired by anyone because you don't have a trade, then what am I gonna do? Am I gonna starve? No, I'm gonna make money.
Do something. Exactly.
In any way I can.
Exactly.
I feel like a lot of the times, not all the times, but a lot of the times, the life of crime comes from like desperation.
Yeah, definitely.
So like, let's say if I grew up in like a very poor background, where
I mean, like in my family, there wasn't a lot of money growing up. There wasn't. You know, my mum was an alcoholic. That was a massive stress.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of money at home, so I didn't want to be a burden, like I said earlier. So I was, that's where that entrepreneurial thing came in. I was always looking for ways, legal when I was really young, of ways to make money. And then ultimately the idea was make enough money from drug dealing. This is what a lot of drug dealers think. Make enough money from drug dealing, start a legit business, get out. But that so rarely happens.
You've got to be very lucky for that to happen.
Also, you've got to be very disciplined. You've got to know when to stop. And, you know, if you're going to do it, you've got to know when to stop and call it a day and say that enough is enough. Really.
Which you probably never will. Cause
yeah,
you
like
just keep chasing that high and one up in it.
Exactly, and that is the problem.
Like you said, it's an addiction. It's an addiction. Pete, thank you so much for, honestly, it was probably one of the most eye-opening conversations I've ever had with someone, especially like someone like you who has been involved in that trade, and we really appreciate you coming all the way up here to share your story, and
that's right.
just interact with us, and thank you so much.
Cool.
Ladies and
Thanks
gentlemen,
guys for watching.
thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, Pete.
Cheers.
Thank you very much, Pete.